First of all, I would like to invite the Dean of Faculty of Education to say a few words to us.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to the Faculty of Education, to the University of Hong Kong, and to the CITERS2016. Let me, on your behalf, thank all the organisers for this event, because these events don't take place without a lot of preparation. So thanks to the organising committee, the team members from CITE and from the Division of Information and Technology Studies. This is a symposium. As you know, these symposia are organised annually by the Centre for Information Technology and Education. And if you go onto the CITE website, you'll see that there is a motto, there's a strapline: empowering communities and transforming learning. And I think the theme of this year's CITE Research Symposium is very much focused on the final two words of that strapline, transforming learning, because it's addressing current trends in classrooms, in schools and in universities that seek to engage learners. Some of the issues around learner engagement may take slightly different forms in the school and the university contexts. In the school context, whether primary or secondary, students are obliged to be physically present. However, many students, although physically present, may be mentally absent. And as a result, much of the interest in enhancing student engagement at the school level is related to motivation, seeking to gain and to retain learners' attention and to stimulate purposeful activity. At the tertiary level, I think the issues around engagement are a little different. At university, we assume a certain level of motivation because attendance is voluntary. If lectures are boring, there's normally no obligation to attend. Students can vote with their feet, and that's an option I can remember availing myself of many times when I was an undergraduate myself, many moons ago. At tertiary level, therefore, the notion and issue of learner engagement is much more related to the quality of student learning. Now, in both contexts, school and university, there is, of course, a concern about the quality of the learning. In the school sector, one of the key issues to be addressed relates back to the phrase I used a few moments ago, purposeful activity. In many schools nowadays, we see increasing advocacy and indeed increasing use of digital games. But if children in school appear to be busy and happily involved in digital games, is that necessarily a good thing? Is such activity actually resulting in the kind of deep learning that would presumably be the intended learning outcome? Or are the children simply busy and occupied with relatively little meaningful learning taking place? That in turn leads to related issues about the most appropriate matching of particular types of digital games to particular intended learning outcomes. The symposium also addresses some of the potential risks associated with the trend towards greater use of digital games in learning and teaching, particularly among younger learners, including the impact of adding competitive elements, using reward systems, as well as the inherent risk of promoting game addiction and potentially undermining the development of all-round personal and social skills that prepare children to communicate and interact in the real world as well as the virtual world. In the tertiary sector, perhaps even more than in the school sector, we see an increasing interest in flipped classrooms. And I know that this morning you had the opportunity to learn about the experiences of our colleague, Professor Rick Dwowczewski, with flipped learning in his law course. I know that Rick would have shared very openly with you both his successes and the challenges that arose when planning and implementing flipped classrooms and flipped learning. For someone like me, observing and indeed encouraging colleagues to experiment with flipped learning, it would seem that one of the major challenges again relates to engagement and the extent to which the flipped classroom succeeds in promoting intended learning outcomes. In the case of the flipped classroom, a significant engagement issue, at least it seems to me, is that of ensuring that learners have engaged sufficiently with preparation before the flipped class that the session itself can genuinely aspire to achieve the degree of in-class task engagement that's likely to promote heightened understanding and deep learning rather than merely scratching the surface. Now, I realise that in my own remarks I'm in danger of just scratching the surface myself, so I'll hand the stage to people who know what they're talking about rather than prolonging my own speech. But let me conclude by welcoming you once more to CITERS 2016. I'm sure that you've already had a very engaging and fruitful morning. Let me wish you a very fruitful Friday afternoon and Saturday morning with us, and we look forward to welcoming you back here next year for CITERS 2017. Thank you.
Today we're lucky we have another guest of honor. Indeed, he has already helped us to start our conference this morning. Professor Ricky KWOK. He is the Associate Vice President. Okay, so then Professor KWOK, please.
Thank you, Allan. Thank you for the introduction. He is right. You already saw me in the morning, so I will be very, very brief. Right? First of all, like what Professor Andrews said, thank you for coming over to this very meaningful event, CITERS 2016, and I'm sure you will find it very useful in the remaining time of this symposium. And thank you for having me here again to say a few words to you. So I would use this opportunity to say a little bit about what we are doing in HKU. Actually, the CITERS 2016 symposium, to me, is a very timely reminder that now even the business sector and the community are taking on technology in education. So we, as a leader in tertiary education, cannot afford to be left behind. Right? So this gathering is really very helpful so that we can exchange ideas to try to build the future that is more desirable to our students. Specifically, e-learning is no longer a groundbreaking idea, but in my opinion, is still something easier said than done. Right? So we talk about e-learning a lot, but what have we done so far? For example, we are actually doing a lot of e-learning artifacts like MOOCs or SPOCs in this university. But behind a MOOC or a flipped class, there are actually countless trials and errors that we have to get through before the event can actually happen, as you have seen in this morning's keynote by Rick. Milestones do not come overnight. It comes with small steps that we take day by day. So please, like me, take Rick's advice to the heart. We start small, maybe a couple of lectures initially, and then we go to a full course gradually. Over the past year, we have witnessed and embraced a lot of changes. These changes involve close collaborations between different units in this campus and various departments in the university and sometimes across institutions in Hong Kong. As mentioned in the previous session with Rick this morning, we have overcome a lot of technical difficulties in holding flipped lectures for over 260 students in Luk Yo Hall. I don't know whether you recognize this from the picture that Rick showed to you in the morning. To me, actually, that picture is kind of ironic. So we are doing something like very advanced kind of pedagogy, e-learning, technology, but we are using a hall that is so old in order to make that happen. That by itself tells you a story. Whether the infrastructure that we have in our university or on campus is really conducive to this kind of large-scale experiment, if you like, of new way of teaching our students. Thanks to all this support from various units like SDA's office, ITS, and many departments, even the Law Student Society, we finally managed to make it happen together with Rick. Speaking about the theme of this year's symposium, games and flipped learning, I already talked about flipped learning. I kind of like what Allan mentioned in the morning. We flipped the order. We talk about flipped learning first, and we talk about games. I completely agree with Professor Andrews' earlier remarks about the risks involved. Like, are we promoting entertainment? Are we trying to encourage addiction of playing games? These are real risks. But our experience has told us that we really have to learn by doing. We just need to do it very carefully. So what we are doing now in the university is, in fact, we try to inject gaming elements into our MOOCs and sports. Specifically, we are working on a board game for one of our MOOC courses that will be launched again later this year. So in that game, we try to balance education and entertainment with very, very careful design, and we are already in many iterations of the design cycle now. Testing and drilling into every component of this board game and other related computer games, in the hope of identifying all the essential ingredients that are needed to strike a proper balance between education and entertainment. It's very difficult because if you want to build an engaging game that can entice students or players to spend time on it, it's already very difficult. Not to mention making it useful from an educational point of view. We are doing all these crazy stuff because we believe that teaching and learning should be in sync with the times. Our students are in the on-the-go generation in which everything is done largely on their mobile devices, on the go. By making lectures devices friendly, we are giving students better control over their learning and more quality time when they actually get to meet the professors. And when they come to classroom, they can have constructive discussions with classmates and the professors and TAs to deepen their learning. So I like to say that technology is not really the main character. Technology is really just an enabler to make quality time between the human beings when they get together. So teachers can provide more, deeper feedback to students, and students can ask more tougher questions. The interaction is what we crave for. As change makers in this university, the hurdles are always there, but through collective efforts, collaborations amongst us in this room, I strongly believe that there's always a solution for any problem. I look forward to more collaborations with our colleagues and with participants to the CITERS 2016 symposium so that more challenges and more problems can be solved together. I guess I have to stop here because you have seen me already in the morning. Thank you very much and wish you all the best in the symposium and the remainder of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Andrews and Professor KWOK. Now, I would like to say a few words. In particular, I would like to thank all the co-organizers and sponsors this year. I would like to read out the names. This year, we have the Center for Advancement in Inclusive and Special Education, Center for Enhancement of Learning, Teaching and Learning, the Hong Kong U Libraries. We see the librarian over there. Hong Kong U Tele is headed by Professor KWOK, and Hong Kong Ed City. So my sincere thanks to all these co-organizers and their support. And we also thank one of our sponsors, ETC, that's Educational Technology Connection, that you can see lots of display over there. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to members of the organizing committee chaired by Dr. Huang. So then thank you very much. And also the administrative and technical staff led by Dr. Liang over there. Thank you very much for their efforts. Without their efforts, this symposium would not have been conceivable. Now, before I ask Dr. Hui to start the second keynote speech, I would like to say a few words. A few weeks before our conference, we were so sorry to hear about one of our keynote speakers, Professor Beverly, had an accident, and her niece was sprained badly. Our best wishes to Professor Beverly for a speedy recovery. She is not able to travel here, as advised by the doctor. However, we're not going to miss her speech because she has kindly agreed to deliver her keynote through video conferencing. Thank you very much for Professor Beverly, and also the technology as well. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Hood to explain how we organize this very special kind of keynote. Dr. Hood, please.